Hi again, Ian Newton here, and Daisy. She just had a haircut since the last video, so she's looking a little trimmer. Today we're talking about the stress and anxiety surrounding COVID-19. I want to make it clear from the outset, I am not proposing that what I'm doing here is treating the virus in any way, shape or form. That would be irresponsible. But we can deal with the stresses. And the process we're going to be using is called EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique. You may have heard of this, you may have even used it. If you have used it, fantastic, you'll have a head start. If you go online, you can see hundreds of thousands of references to EFT. The beauty of this technique is it addresses the problem head on. It doesn't try to hide away and have you relax and contemplate or meditate a problem away. It allows you to directly approach the problem. I also encourage clients to do it standing up, moving around with the appropriate amount of emotion required for the problem and saying it out loud if you can. So let's get started on this COVID-19 stress. I'm going to put this pooch down. So we use acupuncture points. The first is the side of the hand, and this is where we do the setup phrase. Some systems don't use the setup phrase. I find it incredibly valuable because it helps us clearly define what we're working on. So there are so many things we can look at around the pandemic and the stresses. Yesterday I went to a supermarket. There were not enough checkout counters open. The lines were queuing down the aisle, so people were moving past, people were walking around. There was even a lady sneezed in one of the aisles, which caused this kind of tension wave through the air. So let's look at that as an example. I would start off by saying, even though. And this is where I tell the story of what the problem is. Even though the supermarket really isn't set up for this virus, even though there were too many people in there and people were queuing down the aisles and there was even someone sneezing, even though people were walking between other people who were maintaining their distance. And it made me feel stressed and anxious. I love and accept myself. And I choose now to just let that stress go, to let it wash away from me, to breathe, relax and do EFT and let it go. Okay, so what have we done? We're using this point for this whole setup phrase. Even though, and then we state the problem. It was about the supermarket and all the complexities of it. The problem is just the thing. What really matters is how I feel. So I state the problem about the supermarket and then state how I feel. Now you could add to that where you feel it. If you felt a tension in your chest or your stomach or your neck or your jaw, that's what you would add on to that. You could say, even though I have this supermarket's problem making me feel anxious and I feel it in my chest, like it's crushing my chest. I love and accept myself. This is very important. The reason we say this, and sometimes when I say this to guys, they say, I don't want to say that. Well, here's the importance of it. We separate ourselves from the problem. Okay, if I am to walk around saying, I am an anxious person because of this virus, well then, everything gets locked together. But if we say, I've got this problem and it's making me feel anxious and I'm okay, I love and accept myself, now we can work on that problem because I don't want anxiety to be part of my identity. It's just something that's happening in a certain set of circumstances. This can be separated out. Down here, I choose to is to simply say, well, how do you want to feel? I'm feeling anxious. I choose to feel calm. I choose to let it go. I choose to relax that tension in my chest or my shoulders or my stomach or my neck, my jaw, and just let it go. So in a moment we're going to go through that example. So you can see that the supermarket, because we all go to places, like in recent times I've been to a hardware store, I've been to office supplies. Everybody was buying office supplies because of school kids being home and people working from home. And it wasn't quite working the way it should, so it creates some anxiety. And it doesn't have to be anxiety, the word, it could be anything. It could be anger, it could be frustration, It could be resentment at having to do this. Any emotion, and it's what you feel. So this feeling is the problem you experienced. The feeling is what you're feeling. And then the choice is what you would rather instead. Now we all start off by doing a 1 to 10, 0 to 10. 0 means not a care in the world. That supermarket wasn't an issue. 10 would be it was highly stressful. Now I could break that supermarket experience down to a whole lot of factors. For example, when you're standing at your distance apart for the checkout and people are walking closely between, there's a stress, there's an anxiety, that might be an 8. When the lady sneezed, it was almost funny because I'm going to assume she didn't have it. She was a distance from me, and as she sneezed, we made eye contact, and she realized in that moment what she did, and I turned away and I smiled, but I realized that she had suddenly created a lot of social distancing in that aisle, and I could hear from the next aisle as she sneezed again, and I'm sure she was terribly embarrassed. So I wasn't particularly stressed at all by that. In fact, I thought it was a kind of crazy light sort of pandemic moment in the supermarket. Treat it as you will. So I'll take you through a whole thing, and it's going to be, even though I was in the supermarket and people weren't maintaining their social distance, and let's just leave it at that, and that made me feel a bit anxious. I love and accept myself. I choose now to be calm and relaxed, and as I did in the queue, I just started to breathe and relax. And I'd say that 2 or 3 times to really just get that very clear. Then we squash that all down, and I'm going to call it supermarket anxiety. We can call it whatever you want, whatever it means to you. And then we start tapping the points, and we just tap supermarket anxiety. Now, you can use either hand on the points, 2 at once, whatever you like. Beginning the eyebrow, supermarket anxiety, supermarket anxiety, supermarket anxiety. Just tap a few times. Under the nose, supermarket anxiety, supermarket anxiety. Down here across the collarbone, supermarket anxiety. On the wrist, supermarket anxiety, and just breathe out, relax, relax. And then take a deep breath in. Noticing how you're feeling. Now you may just go into it, and you may go into it in a little more complicated way, like this. Supermarket anxiety. Ladies sneezing in the aisles. People coming too close. Not enough space in the supermarket. Too many people in the supermarket. Too many people in the aisles. People cutting in front. Supermarket anxiety. And you just go round and round in the circuit. Doesn't matter what order you do it in. I do it from top down to bottom. With always a little breath out here on the end. And then after you've done it a couple of times, just think about that problem and see where you are on the 0 to 10. Let's say, for argument's sake, I started at 8, and then I do 2 or 3 rounds, and now I'm feeling 5. That's a lot more relaxed. Let's just do a bit more, even though I still have some supermarket anxiety. And it's making me feel stressed, and I can feel it in my chest. I love and accept myself. I choose to be calm and relaxed and just let that tension roll out of my body. And name the part. If it's in your chest, I choose to let that tension relax out of my chest. And as you do that, just let the chest muscles go. Let the shoulder muscles go. Let your jaw relax. That's right. And then I do the supermarket anxiety. Too many people in the aisles. Feeling anxious. Feel it in my chest. Don't want to go to the supermarket anymore. Just want to stay at home. Whatever it is. You get the idea? Tell it like a little story of the various components. So that's the mechanics of EFT. Come back and watch this a few times. You can't do it wrong. You will always get a benefit if you just do it, like any good stress management process. So what are you going to do it around? Well, let's look at some issues. With COVID-19, we have lockdown in some places to varying degrees. So you could be at home by yourself. You could be feeling isolated. Even though I'm feeling isolated and it's making me really upset, I love and accept myself. You could be in a house of too many people. Even though there's just too many people in here and we're driving each other crazy and I can't get any personal space. I love and accept myself. I choose to let this stress go. I choose to make the best of the situation. It won't last forever. Then you would squeeze that down. Too many people, too much stress, too many worries. We could have issues around finances. Many people have lost their jobs, and I'm really seriously sorry for those people in those situations. So it could be, even though I don't have a job and I don't know what's going to happen and I can't afford to pay my rent or to pay my mortgage, and it's just making me feel so stressed, I can hardly breathe. I love and accept myself. That'd be an example. You have other people who are working more. They may be frontline people in the hospitals or deliveries, or when I'm in the supermarket, I feel for the poor person on the checkout with all those people going through, especially in the early days when they were buying all the toilet paper. So anybody like that, and so anybody who's working harder could, even though I'm having to work so many hours and I'm feeling so stressed about this. What about somebody right at the front line? Even though I'm having to work with people with the virus, and I'm a caring person and I'm dedicated to my work, I love and accept myself. I choose to relax and tell that whole story of how you feel. A person in that position could be tapping that, I'm working with COVID people. I'm worried about personal protection clothing. Why aren't we getting more support? And you know what the story is. You see, it's always your story. It's not my story. That's why I give you an outline, because all you have to do is tell it to yourself or to the mirror like you were telling a person. How's it going at the moment? How are you feeling at the moment? What's the impact of this? We could do it around eating junk food at home, even though I'm eating too much junk food because I'm spending so much time on the couch watching streaming videos. I love and accept myself, and I choose to only buy healthy foods and to eat healthy amounts of food. It could be that you feel the whole thing is just so unfair. Even though this is so unfair, and how can this have ever happened to the world? It could be that you're worried about the world at large. You could be worried about specific countries, of relatives in those countries. We've just had some relatives come back and spend some time in quarantine, and we saw them last night, and it was such a relief for them, and they were able to see the sunshine back here in Australia. They'd come from the UK, and it had been cold and gloomy, and they were locked inside, and they were locked in a hotel, and then there's another side to it. What if you really think the whole thing's just a big fuss? See, it's your story. It's not my story. Even though I think the whole thing's being blown out of proportion, even though I shouldn't have to do this. I've seen people refusing to wash their hands or have to stand the distance because they don't feel they have to. And that, we might look at that and think that's terrible. But they're experiencing a kind of stress that's leading to that behavior. So if that's you, do some tapping. I always say to people, look, if you think tapping is a silly thing, this is how you start. Even though I think this tapping, this EFT, looks completely ridiculous and silly, I love and accept myself. I choose now to give it a go and see what happens. Too silly, couldn't possibly work. What a ridiculous thing. How could this ever work? Even though it's worked for hundreds of thousands of people in the world, how could it possibly work for me? That's a way to end it. That I often do in seminars. Now I've had 3-day workshops where I've taken people through this process, and we're getting like a mini glimpse, but this is sufficient to get you started and to work with it, and just work your subjective rating 0 to 10, see where it's coming from. But you'll be feeling like that, and then you'll just start to feel a little lighter, and you'll feel better. And then there's a point right at the end here between these where we can install positive thoughts. And these are often positive identity thoughts. I am calm, I am happy, I am managing this. I will manage these situations. I can go into supermarkets and feel relaxed. I can manage the people in my house. I can manage being alone. I am a resilient person. And if when you say that, you think, no, I'm not, well, then you go, even though I'm not a resilient person, even though I don't have the inner strength to handle this situation, I love and accept myself. And I choose to be strong. I choose to make good decisions for myself. I choose to love and care for myself, to be kind to myself and kind to others. You see, you can go with this wherever your thoughts go. If I'm working with a client, I will always say to them after they've done a round, what are you thinking or feeling? And somebody might say, well, I was feeling really anxious, but now I'm feeling angry. Okay, even though I'm feeling angry. And we would take it in that direction. Later on, hey, what are you thinking or feeling? Yeah, I'm just feeling a little sad. Okay, even though I feel sad. Or they might say, I feel good. I feel calm. And I love it when clients say that, because often it happens very quickly in a session, and I can see there's a little bit of confusion. How did I go from feeling stressed to feeling just, I just feel calm and relaxed? Well, that's the wonder and the magic of EFT. But what it is you doing it, you applying the process. Thank you. I'm Ian Newton. I wish you so much health and happiness and surviving and all those things that you want for yourself. Please work with this. All the best. Thank you.